Good evening, and welcome to Soluble, America's Political Central. Today is February 10th in the year of our Lord 2023. And on this Friday, we're going to do issue day, of course. And the issue that we're going to be discussing today is food consumption in America. Now, this is not something that, we're more or less looking to solve or try to help solve. This is more or less a podcast with the intentions of being informative, out of concern, to make those who may not be aware more aware. So, food is something that we all need, of course. We need to replenish our empty stomachs to give us strength to endure from day to day. Vehicles run on fuel. The fuel for human consumption is food. We have to have it, for the purpose of living and for life itself. But we want to take a long look at, when it comes to food, and see how we're living to eat versus eating to live. Now, as we're living in a time now where we have to have food more mass produced, or do we? That's the $64,000 question. Do we have to have it produced faster, or do we not, have to have it produced faster? Now, when I was a kid, you didn't hear of the type of cancers at the rate that you hear about them and see them today. And it's real important that we take a look at what we're consuming, how much of it. Can we do a more plant-based diet versus meat-based diet? These are the choices that, lie before us in this day and age of mass production of food. And so, it's a choice. As I said, I will take a salad, with tomatoes, with the spinach, I throw a boiled egg and some onions. I mean, in comparison to a juicy steak, a juicy hamburger, fried chicken, fried fish, of course, it doesn't win the taste battle. It doesn't win the taste battle. But at the end of that meal, I'm way more nutritionally satisfied. My body is more nutritionally satisfied, even if my taste buds, didn't get the kick, the rush that I may have gotten from these other aforementioned foods, fried this and fried that. So as I said, when it comes to living to eat, we have, we're restaurant galore. We're rich in food in this country. It's at every twist and turn. They're throwing it out in the dumpsters because it's not being consumed fast enough, and they're replacing it. Now, it's going to be up to us as consumers to make that choice, and it's a choice that we all have to make. As I said, everybody is not as willing as I am, and so we give in to our temptations. It's like a drug to some people. It's like a drug. It's like they don't want to eat it. They know it's not good for them. They're trying to eat it in moderation, or they're trying to cut back based on what the doctor just told them because of obesity. And then it's kind of like Pookie on New Jack City when he's in the flag draped shirt, under the lamp, trying to fight, trying to resist. That's what it could be like to some people. Now, when I was young, I made tease. I made mock, when I would see, a person that was overweight headed towards the buffet line. But, as I've gotten older and wiser, we have to look at it for what it is. This is really a serious problem. So much so, that Obamacare came into being. It was necessary. because of the epidemic of obesity in America. And it's, once again, I can't say it enough, it's a choice. You have plant meat that tastes like meat that's from a plant. Um, you know, tofu, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, the plant base is very plentiful. The nuts, the grains, dealing with your basic food groups, knowing which ones to not hit on so much versus the ones that are nutritional for you. But as I said, and I can't emphasize it enough, it's a choice that we all have to make. And we would not like to think about it, but it is what it is. We go into the grocery store and there it is. There are the choices that are before us. Now, you have, in neatly organized packages for your own choosing, because no one is there holding a gun over your head. Now, do you live to eat in this moment, or do you eat to live? I mean, there, it is what it is. Certain things in the grocery store are neatly packaged heart attacks, are neatly packaged high blood pressure, are neatly packaged diabetes. And so, there is a question that lies before you. I mean, here at Soluble, opposition is, we would like to think that you would wrestle with this question before even entering. But the food in this country, we have to take a long look at what's safe and what's not safe, what's likely to add years to your life versus what's more likely to take away years from your life. And it's a choice. It's a choice. This is nothing, as I said, that we're proclaiming to be able to solve, or we're going to solve the obesity epidemic in America. Our position here at Soluble is just to open your eyes as to the drug part of it, the ability to resist the temptation to eat these harmful foods. Meat is not what it used to be. It's not what it used to be. We don't know, if it's GMO modified. We don't know, what is being added to it. And especially once it makes it to the grocery store. And so when we're in the grocery store shopping, and you're in that section, you know, you have to be able to make that determination as to, does that look like a safe amount of red dye? Do I want to touch that at all? Is it just got coloring on it to make it, appear to be still fresh? It's buyer beware. It's buyer beware. Food consumption in America today, in large part, sadly, is killing us. It's adding to, the sicknesses. These sicknesses just don't come out of nowhere. And if you look and are paying attention, there's a recall on something, especially meat products. There's a recall, it seems, every other week. And, the numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie. I mean, you are what you eat. Being from down south, I remember as a kid, one of my grandmother's father, when we were little, we would hear the elders say, talk about how he died from sugar. And it's kind of confusing. It's like, how does sugar kill? And then you grow older and you educate yourself and you become more informative and you realize that, excuse me, sugar was just diabetes by another ignorant name, by a lack of knowledge of how to word it. It was diabetes. And so, these sicknesses, diseases, they have been hanging around for a while. Um, you know, in America, we people of color, we have to look at the part of the soul food diet where we definitely, need to consume it more in moderation. Because if we continue to shove it down in large amounts because of a taste desire, you could be headed in. You could be headed for that bad report. And we look at the statistics. We hear what the people in the media are saying. Based on what health experts are telling them, what doctors are telling them. Like for instance, there's a heart attack in this country every 27 seconds, every 30 something seconds. There's a heart attack somewhere in the 52 states. And we knock on wood, we thank God, that we're here and alive to tell the story. But these are not easy choices. As I said, when I shove a salad down, and that's the best way to describe it. When I shove it down twice a week, as I said, it's very little that is appealing to my taste buds. Very little. But the question, it comes down to the question of, do you want to live or do you want to die? Do you want to be sick or do you want to be healthy? We're learning more about, they're bringing to our attention about, these meats with the nitrates in them, the processed meat. What can one do? You have to make that choice because it's there. It's there. Where we know there's evidence that prolonged consumption over long periods of time in huge amounts or in high doses is going to get you there. It's going to get you towards the prostate or the colon. It's inevitable. And as I said, also, the high blood pressure, the diabetes. And so, what do you do? When you're fiending, for lack of a better word, when you're joning, for lack of a better word, and it's hard to fight the temptation. Whereas it's bad for you, and you don't need it. Excuse me. And of course, we've got relaxed with our all-time backup. Our go-to that makes it where it's not so bad at all. And that go-to is the doctor's office and the pill bottle. Plant-based is the way to go. It's not 100% foolproof because they tell us now that the forever chemicals, the PFOAs or what have you, the forever chemicals, they're in everything. But we would just like to, as I said, point out when it comes to food consumption, maybe we can enlighten. I mean, we understand for those who are overweight and obese, and the ignorance that floats around. It is what it is. You have to die of something. You're gonna die of something. That's a part of the ignorant argument when it comes to food consumption in the country, what you consume, how much of it. And it's a numbers game, and we're caught up. You can either be a pawn in it or you can become aware and self-sustain. Eat to live. But the meat products, a large amount of the meat products are harmful to your health. You may or may not know it. So the question begs an answer from you. We have to start with that man in the mirror. How many more Big Macs am I away from a heart attack? From passing out from a stroke. How many more Whopper Juniors with cheese can I afford to consume before it catches up with me? Because it will. Because it will. During my daily works from Monday through Friday, the restaurant was my go-to. It was my go-to. I was hungry. I needed to get something to eat. I mean, and I still do. Don't get me wrong. But my choices now are way much more health conscious. And I must say I feel better. I violated you know, since I contemplated doing this podcast when it comes to food consumption. Here's an example of, violating the stance that you've taken or the position that you've taken on what you're going to consume and how you're going to consume it. I'm doing good. I'm doing great. I'm able to come home for lunch, or I'm able to, eat such a heavy breakfast, a bowl of oatmeal, a bowl of cream of wheat with some protein patties or what have you, where it holds me until I can make it home for dinner and I don't have to go in the restaurant. And, I must say, it feels so much better. I feel so much more strengthened. You would think I wouldn't, but ironically, I have even more energy because, I don't have these chemical based foods weighing me down, during the day, during the course of the day after lunch. But back to finish up what I was gonna say before I stray too far. Going against my will, going against my pattern, going against my better judgment on what I've been doing, and it's been working. I'm doing a project for my sister. Taking care of a little something inside her apartment for her, and it's about 4 o'clock, 3:30, going on 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I go to a Publix. Now, my intention is to go in and play a scratch off, but I somehow, going against my better judgment, meander and wanders over to the food section, where they have the hot food out on display in pans and such. And I'm looking at the food on the display case, all the food in the display case, and the guy that's working there, he's waiting on a customer in front of me. Now here I am, Mr. Impatient, totally breaks the code, grabs a pack popcorn chicken from under the heat lamp, and for the next 2 days, I felt it, sick in my stomach, loose stools, my knees felt, my legs felt tight, like they were somewhere in pain. It's like I had someone like chills shooting through my body. I thought I was dealing with, a worst case scenario of COVID. But that's what violating the code. Going against my better judgment and grabbing a pack of popcorn chicken, which I had no intention of doing when I walked in the store. And so, we're human. We're human like that. That's my story. I'm pretty sure there are other horror stories out there. And it's time, we would think here at Soluble, suggest that it's time to take a step back, take a deep breath, and come again, on our food choices. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's like, you know, even though I've never smoked, it's like something like maybe quitting cigarettes cold turkey. When it comes to, drawing a definitive line in the sand to say, no more. I'm done. I'm going to change my pattern. And, we salute those who can do it and those who have done it. And, we're applauding and we're rooting for those who are trying. I mean, because, it's something that we really need to take a second look at. Food consumption, how much we're consuming. What's the moderation rate that we're setting for ourselves in order to live? Because the doctor can't save you, in every case. There's not a magic pill. And, from generation to generation, we see it. We see it. And so, it's hard for my elders, when I go home to Georgia. And, my diet is somewhere different than what it was when they were feeding me, when I was growing up. It's like, boy, go ahead and eat that. Go ahead and eat that. Ain't that. And I get it. I get it. And so, I may go through the motion. I mean, I won't consume it. I go through the motions, pretend I'm getting a little bit or something, and eventually I ease on away from the table, get out of that situation. But we have to take a definitive stand if we want to remain healthy, because it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming right now to the medical facilities in America. As I stated, Obamacare, one of the motivations for the former president, to bring forth this legislation was because of the obesity crisis in the country. The military is having trouble recruiting, because of obesity. And so, it's something that we're speaking to the nation tonight from a point of view of, caring, concerning. And it's not easy. It's not, we get it. It's not easy, you know, um, to change that habit, to change those dietary ways from what we grew up on, fried chicken and collard greens, macaroni and cheese, you know, et cetera, et cetera. We have to take a look at, what it's actually doing to us. Now maybe there's some ways where we can prepare it differently, where it doesn't, make us as sick as it did, in years past. But as I said, those are decisions for the individual. But we know that, you know, there it is, not just from the USDA, but we see what's happening to family, to friends. Sometimes now, it seems like even at a more younger age, it's happening. So, you are what you eat. You are what you eat. And as I said, when you go in the grocery store, you have, that there lie the choices before you. If you can recognize a neatly packaged heart attack waiting to happen, you know, um, and you still pick it up and put it in your shopping cart, that's just what you're doing. That's just what you're doing. Decision time when it comes to food consumption in America. You know, um, drinking water. Eating from the basic groups. Some more so than others. Will keep you. It has a higher percentage chance of keeping you alive and well. And these are choices. These are choices that we have to make. The food recalls, the mass production is causing mass sickness. Mass production is causing mass sickness. The two go hand in hand. And so, you know, take that pause. That's what we're basically asking here. Take the pause, hit the pause button, take a long look at how often and what, is being consumed. I feel a lot better now. As I said, since I left the restaurants, the burgers and buns, the chicken sandwiches and buns, along with the fries and the drink. I feel so much better now. And, my advice is take it one day at a time. Of course, Rome wasn't built in a day. And so you have to take it one day at a time. Willpower. And just, the choice that you make, knowing that it may be hard. It may be, not satisfying to one's taste buds, but you're healthy longer. There's a good chance you're living ache and pain free, better, longer, with better choices in food consumption. Now, a couple years here back, tragically, we lost a close family member. She fought cancer. She beat it. It went into, I think, what they call remission, and then it came back again, and so she was battling again. She was cancer free there. She got cancer free, I think, if not, I'm not mistaken, twice, and she fought a courageous battle. But finally, there was that visit to the doctor, where after the checkup, excuse me, after the checkup, she was informed that it was no longer treatable, and that it was just a matter of time. Now, one of the most shocking things that I heard from her mother, who is my aunt, is that in those final days, in that time where she discovered that it was pretty much getting to the point where it was untreatable, and she may not come up out of the sick bed. The doctor recommends or advises her to, of all things, eat wild game. And it's like, I'm on my deathbed now. There's no chance of recovery based on what the physicians are telling me, even after the second, third opinion. And now you're telling me eat wild game. So, we have to ask ourselves based on that, what do they know that we don't? And should we take that advice here now while we're still in the land of the living and healthy, and run with it and run with it? But this is what the doctor told my cousin, in her final days, towards the end, to eat wild game. So, let that, serve as a light bulb moment, if you will. Are we going to be guinea pigs? Are we being guinea pig for the sake of the meat industry? And, meanwhile, we're pawns in the game, falling off slowly but surely, little by little, one by one, while, the government throws huge dollar amounts at research, trying to find a cure, trying to do it in a way where it doesn't cause cancer. I think, one thing that we should be asking the government, as far as with, our farmers in this country and how they're growing food, is there any way to turn back the clock to a time where, food was prepared in a way that it didn't cause cancer? Where did we cross the line? Where did we drop the ball? What did we add to the process, to the curing process, to the killing process? And check all those boxes. Look there for the answers that we need in order to maybe stem the tide or stop it altogether. But something is amiss here. Something is amiss in the way it's being prepared. And, we, the people, have the power, but, that is more or less have to do a lot right here in this particular situation with willpower. That's what it's going to take to, stem the tide, to stop the flow. But, just as sure as, you may or may not be listening, um, we have, choices to make. It's not where, we can say, well, there was a gun to my head. They held a gun to my head and made me eat it. That's not the case. And so, we're just trying to be informative. Our goal here, as I said, when it comes to food consumption, is not to. There's nothing to solve here, ladies and gentlemen. We're trying to be informative because, as I said, we have to have it. It's fuel for our bodies. Food is, but there are better choices to be made if you want to avoid the hospital, that flirtation with death, that grim report from the doctor. But the thing about it is, a lot of the things that are good for us don't have that good taste, and that's what oftentimes leads us astray, is that desire for that taste versus looking at it for what nutritional value that it may or may not have. And it's not easy. But we here at Soluble, we thought we would breach the subject, um going into the new year, just to make you aware or more aware, because you know, sadly, the process is broken now, and that process being food preparation in this country. I mean, just because you live in the land of, a million restaurants, doesn't mean you have to indulge in all of them. I mean, of course, variety is the spice of life, but we're talking about, life or death here. We're talking about life or death situations. And so, it's good to be in the land of the living from day to day. And there's nothing like being here healthy. Some of us are in the land of the living suffering, on medications, um, burdened down, fighting this, fighting this drug that we've come to know as food. It's a drug. And so, um, if you need help, seek it out. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. You're doing what it takes to preserve life. And nothing is more important than your life. So, you know, um, I would move past the mockery or what others may think. If you need that help, seek it. There are groups out there, organizations, support groups that you can turn to in your time of weakness or in your time of need for support. Because some people can't fight it alone. But that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Um, we're dealing with these diseases and these sicknesses, and it's due in large part to the types of food that we're consuming, how much of it, you know, um, which group, that we go to the most. Some people, won't know parts of any vegetable, and to each his own. But know that the clock is ticking, and it's ticking against you. It's ticking slower than the regular clock. So, we would hope that we've been able to shed some light on the dangers of eating the wrong types of food in large amounts in the land of a million restaurants, thousands of grocery stores. We're food plenteous. We're food plenteous. And so, the consumption is limitless. The types of things, that we can consume and how much of them. You name it, we got it. Donut shops, burger joints, pizza parlors. You name it, we got it. And, the obesity crisis is, it's nothing to sneeze at. It's nothing to take lightly because, the body always breaks down. Sometimes fast, some faster than others, but it always inevitably breaks down going into old age. And, whereas you're young, you're able to suck it up, your body's able to absorb it, shake it off, and keep moving. It will catch up with you in the long run. And, once again, to each his own. But our mission here at Soluble tonight, when it comes to food consumption, is to be informative. Just to bring it to the forefront of discussion, coming fresh, still fresh into a new year. It doesn't have to be this way. Willpower, eating the right things, eating the wrong, even if you're eating bad things, moderation is the key. Moderation is the key. And so, for those of you who, when it comes to food, it's like a drug, we understand, you know, We understand because, as I said, we are a food plenteous country. It's food everywhere in every shape, form, and fashion. You can get it at the grocery store and cook it, or you can pull up to the nearest drive-through. You can go in and sit down and dine. You have DoorDash now. You have Instacart. So it's getting easier. Um, the restaurants are coming out with new menu items constantly. So the battle is there. The battle is being waged, and it's not easy said than done. We get it. And so, here we are, trying to offer words of wisdom, words of support to those who are fighting, you know, really trying and wanting to do better. But know that, there's nothing like the feeling that one gets from eating healthy. I shove it down. And it's a terrible term to use, but it is what it is. I have to not so much force it, but I have to, it's like eating something that you don't enjoy as far as taste wise. It's a grueling meal. It's a grueling meal, and you're trying to pretty much chew it down, and it's almost like a thing where you want to get it over with. Like taking a bad dose of castor oil. You just want it down. You just want it to go away. And that's what it's like. So, even though it goes down, as bitter as wormwood, if you will, it's like, gold in my belly. I know what Popeye means, when he says he's strong to the finish because he eats his spinach. It's a feeling that it's hard to describe, but you will know it when you feel it by, eating as much plant-based as possible. As much plant-based as possible. That's our recommendation. That's our suggestion here tonight at Soluble in closing. As much plant-based as possible. Nitrates in meat, processed meats. It's not the way to go. Heavy doses all day, every day. It's going to catch up with you more sooner than you think because of how it's being mass produced now. And honestly, we may be able to seek it out, but it's just not like right there in front of your face to tell you, what each one of these ingredients mean. What do they do? The harmful effects that they have on the body. When you look at a pack of processed meat, hot dogs, for example, you see the things that they're made of. Excuse me, but you haven't a clue. You really have no clue as to how they break down in the body, how long it takes for them to break down in the body. You're clueless. And so, that's where the question comes in, whether you're going to eat to live. How hungry can you be to just shove it down without a care? In the land of plenty of food, we like to think that it's not out of desperation. It's more has to do with willpower because there's food everywhere. And so we would hope that with tonight's podcast on food consumption, we would try to bring some of these things into focus. Trying to deal with stay with the basic food groups that are there to sustain you. Give you energy, build muscle. While at the same time keeping you healthy. Foods that are high in cholesterol. We know the deal. So it's a drug. There's drugs in it. And it shouldn't have to be like this. There was a time when it wasn't. But as the population explodes, mankind has felt compelled to keep up. And so the question is how? How exactly can we do this? And so, you're caught in the middle. If you choose to be, you're caught in the middle. If you're eating for taste versus nutritional value, that's probably going to be a negative when it comes to your physical health and your physical well-being. Tough choices, ladies and gentlemen, tough choices. Food consumption in the country is, a choice. It's a choice that we all have to make. And so, we hope that by doing this podcast tonight, we can bring that, to the forefront. We're alive and well, we're healthy because of our diet, not in spite of it, but because of it. And so, we like to think that once we, took that deep dive in, it wasn't easy at first. The water was cold. But we've acclimated, and it's a great journey now. It's a great mission, to be here alive, healthy, and able to tell the story versus, in a hospital bed with tubes running out of my nose, or punctures in my arm where they're drawing blood and what have you. So, choices to make. Do we want to live healthy or do we want to live sickly? Be particular, be careful when you're in the meat aisle in the grocery store. When you're in the meat market, be careful. It's a real buyer beware now. It's a real buyer beware. And so, this will determine, you know, to be or not to be healthy or not to be. It's going to depend on those choices that you make in the grocery store, in any moment of hunger, lunchtime, breakfast, dinner. There's a choice to be made. Now, there are great healthy selections, and there are harmful selections. Some we grew up on, and we had to learn better as we got older, as to why this keeps happening. Generation after generation, we're having these large waves of heart attacks, high blood pressure, diabetes. It's because the diet is the same. The way we're preparing it is the same. The salt of the earth is good, but too much of it is not good for you. Too much of it is not good for you. Sodium content, food consumption, ladies and gentlemen. There is a vast array of ways to prepare food, ways to season food. We encourage you, to take that deep dive into different recipe books. Go online, if you will, and you limit your salt intake. And if you do your deep dive, if you do your research, you will find that there are so many other, delicious ways to season food where you lower your sodium intake. And that's pretty much eating outside of the Southern heritage. Eating outside of the Southern heritage, because for people of color in this country, that's where the soul food originates from the Southern cookbook, from the Southern recipe. And we have to know that we didn't have the best diet there, being in servitude. We had to work with what we had. And now today we have, you know, the sky's the limit choices, just like any other red-blooded American. So we would hope that, that healthy decision is made. As I said, there's a vast array of seasonings. There's plant-based group. Looking at you, there's the nuts and grains group. There's the fruit group. These are great groups to indulge in more often. And as I said, it is what it is. Uh, Salmon, chicken, fish, lamb, you know, um, These fresh type cuts of meat are good for you. They're good for you. And we still, suggest when it comes to the frying of it, maybe fish or chicken, to limit it. To limit it. Try it more baked and broiled. And you'll be surprised at the difference that you feel in a clear artery versus a clogged artery. You'll be surprised. So, in closing, this is not to humiliate or mock. We try to, do a quick deep dive into food consumption in America on this Friday issue day. We hope we have been enlightening. We hope that we have been informative to the point where you take that step to turn it around or begin to try to turn it around, because it starts with you. It starts with me, the individual, the man in the mirror. And you have to ask yourself those questions. Do I want to begin to let my physician tell me what I already should know and eat right and eat healthy? Or should I just go ahead on and push it? Because in pushing it, in doing so, you might not get that trip to the physician. It could be a fatal this or a fatal that. And you never get that trip. So, it's something to think about. Are we going to live to eat, or are we going to eat to live? That is the question that we here at Soluble pose to you, our listeners, tonight when it comes to food consumption in this country. We're eating healthy. We're trying our best to set the example. Temptation rears its ugly head sometimes, and we violate. We're human. But for the most part, we're trying to lead by example. So when you see us on air, when you see us out and about in our daily lives, we're trying to consume that healthy food the vast majority of the time, to be here, to take the worryation away, to take the strain off the healthcare system by taking these little steps to make better food choices. So, in closing, that is the question, as I said. Are we going to live to eat, or are we going to eat to live? And when you go in the grocery store, you have those choices. You have life and health packaged up, and you have death and sickness packaged up. And those that are packaged where we should be well aware of by now. And so, it's your choice. Food consumption in America shouldn't be dangerous. It shouldn't be, like walking a minefield. But we have to be, aware of those products that are in the grocery store that are more than likely being mass produced in a way with ingredients that are being added that cause cells in our bodies to rapidly multiply in the form of cancer. So buyer beware, take heed when it comes to the choices that you make at the grocery store, at the fast food restaurant, at the dine-in restaurant. Try to make that, correct decision. It's not always the easy one. It's not the one always that, makes your taste buds explode. But at the end of the day, there's a price to pay, if you will. There's a question, that you have to ask yourself. Is this food going to add years to my life, or possibly take years away from my life? That's where we're at in the year of our Lord 2023. That's where we're at because of the mass production of food in this country. So food consumption, and we would like for our listeners to enjoy. Variety is the spice of life, but moderation is the key. So, please keep that in mind when it comes to the choices that we make at the grocery store or out in our everyday lives when we're dining abroad, when we're dining out, with family and or with friends. It's very important. Every other week, as I said, there's a recall of some kind. And there are probably some that don't get reported, or that make it out, and they're never caught. So no one knows to um, put out a recall because this particular one has slipped through the cracks. We can do better, and we must. If we have to keep in mind, as to what our elected officials are doing. What's going on at the FDA. As Americans, we have that freedom to get information through the Open Records Acts, or whatever that might govern the release of that information to any concerned American citizen. So it's there. You just have to do your due diligence. And so that's the choice that we all have to make when it comes to food consumption in this country. This is the conclusion of this podcast, Food Consumption in America. Buyer beware. Enjoy. We have the Super Bowl coming up the day after tomorrow. And there's probably going to be some serious violations, some serious gorging. But we all have to ask ourselves that question. And be honest with ourselves when we're looking at the answer: to live healthy or to live sickly is going to be based on the choices you make in food. Because largely in this case, you are what you eat. How healthy you remain depends on what you consume, how much of it, and at what level. Food consumption in America. We hope that we've been informative. We can lead you to the right choices. We can motivate you to make the right choices. We know it's not easy, and so you have our support. You have our understanding, and just we encourage you to be strong, keep the faith, and consider your well-being when it comes to making those choices as to what you're going to eat, what are you going to let inside your body, and what you refuse to put in. This is Soluble. We thank you for joining us tonight. We look forward to bringing you fresh political broadcasts in the coming weeks, keeping you informed, and looking forward to discussing issues on a weekly basis in order to be informative, by bringing you the pure facts as we know them and as we see them. We're open for questions. We welcome feedback. We love opposing points of view because it enlarges the discussion, it enhances the discussion, and we can put these think tanks together and come up with better solutions that work for everybody in America. So this is Soluble signing off. We thank you for joining us tonight for the issue day of food consumption in America, and we look forward to bringing you fresh political news and broadcasts in the coming week and weeks. Until the next time, this is Soluble signing off. Good night and God bless. Thank you.